there are any questions or comments, feel free to interrupt me at any time. Yep. So last time we were talking about graphs, and we're not going to go into the introduction again. We went through examples, and we're going to continue where we left off. And you have this nice convenience of being able to review the material, the lecture that we talked about on YouTube. This is a slide that demonstrates that graphs are not restricted to straight edges. You can have graphs with edges that are curved that encode more information than a straight edge. So here's a graph, and imagine I wanted to find out if I'm at node C and there's some traffic or a transition from B to C. Well, in this graph, we don't really know what the full history of the transitions are. This graph is so simple that we do know, because all transitions from B have to come from A. But if we're looking at D, for example, and we want to go back 2 transitions, we might not be able to tell if somebody made a transition from B to D or from E, C to D, because all the edges are straight. So we cannot decipher the traffic that goes this direction from this direction. Or in other words, 2 transitions ago, or 2 transitions down the graph topology. Here we get more of a sense, like if this traffic is, if we make a transition from B to C, it's clear that it goes through A and through B. And for these transitions from D to C, it's clearer because there's a curve here, right? And there's a curve here. And here it's clear that there's no way necessarily to go from E to A, right? Because the edges are curved. So the point is, we can add curvature to the edges so we can disambiguate transitions that involve more than just 2 nodes, 2 neighboring nodes in the graph topology. Right, and this is what a graph with higher order transitions looks like. So we can identify, if we look at this graph, we can identify traffic that comes from this node, or transitions that come from this node, as opposed to some other node that might be two away, right? As opposed to, we're not seeing any other branches in this case, but. And here we can see transitions that are 2 nodes away instead of just 1 node away, right? And this is applied to the study of deep sea wildlife or marine biology. We can also enhance the edges with other properties besides just curvature or straight. We can apply texture to the edges. So these are different patterns of texture. And we can apply, these are the texture patterns, and here's what they look like when they're mapped to the edges. And we can actually encode the frequency of transitions in those edges. For example, we could make edges with more frequent transitions thicker, or we could give them different textures. And one of the nice properties of textures is you can animate the textures, so you can show animation in the flow of transitions, right, and indicate which direction transitions are happening in. This is an example that shows a user clicking different nodes in a graph, and the edges are highlighted to the corresponding neighbors. So here the user clicks on this node and the edges are highlighted. This is actually interactive, so we're trying to represent something that's interactive in some static images, which is limited. And here we can see that the number of transitions between these 2 nodes is the most frequent, because the edge is the thickest. And if we could see this in action, we would see that these textures are also animated, so we can see which direction the transitions occur in. Right? And this focus or highlighting occurs depending on whichever node the user clicks on. And here's a comparison of straight edges versus curved edges. So we could click on this node and then watch the path through more than one transition state to see where the transitions are coming from. I hope that makes sense to everybody. And this was built as part of a system that explores marine biology data. There's a time and amplitude graph on the lower window. Here's the higher order graph in the higher window and some other views of the same data in two other views as part of a software system. And I might be able to click on this link. Let's just see if that works. Yes, so this is on the YouTube channel. If you want to see what it looks like when a user is actually interacting with it. I guess it's hard to see with the lights on. Should I turn the lights off? Anybody have an opinion? You want to give it a try? Oh, there's one of them. These modern light switches, just unpredictable. It's a little bit light and it's hard to see on the projector, but these are animated transitions. So you can see traffic going in this direction and also transitions in this direction. You'll be able to see it better if you look at the original video online. And the user can click on different nodes and interact with the graph, right? And zoom in on it and pan it and those sorts of different things. There's also a voice that explains what's happening in the video. So if you watch it like outside of lecture, you can hear the voice explaining more of the details. Okay, so that's it for graphs. Very, very short introduction to graphs. It's like a crash kind of lecture into graphs. Like I mentioned, we could take an entire module just on graphs. That would be an interesting module. And the graphs have their own events too, like there's an annual graph drawing conference. And it's a very, very specialized but very popular topic. Any questions about graphs? You can certainly use them in assignment 1, and I hope I see some nice graphs in assignment 1. You'll notice if you start looking, there are lots of graph drawing tools.